I knew something was off when Cheryl from HR knocked on my office door and whispered, "Hey, you forgot to initial the new NDA." I didn't. I never forget anything. That's why the damn company ran like a freshly oiled turbine instead of a flaming hoverboard strapped to a toddler. Still, I signed the paper, handed it back, and went right back to translating legalese into code triggers for the $300M Macrovia merger, the one they kept announcing like a second coming at every town hall, but no one actually understood. 12 years. That's how long I'd been at Core Links. Not loudly, not glamorously. I wasn't the ping-pong table crowd or the kombucha slackers who wrote manifestos about culture on our internal wiki. I was the one who made sure the merger protocols passed SEC sniff tests, who built the quiet integration lattice between Macrovia's creaking legacy system and our Frankenstein backend that had been duct-taped through 5 CTOs. You know, the boring stuff. The critical stuff. The stuff they didn't even know they needed until it was broken, and I had to crawl in at 2 a.m. on Christmas Eve to stitch it back together. That morning, I had 3 monitors open, 2 half-drunk coffees cold on my desk, and a post-it that said Ask Legal about Clause 9, C circled in angry red. Behind me, the office hummed with the usual startup bravado, project managers swaggering around like they invented time, devs arguing about whether JSON was emotional enough, and one intern playing the same 30 seconds of a Kendrick song on loop until I nearly stapled his AirPods to the desk. And in the middle of all that, I sat there, alone in my corner, reviewing the final compliance cert for Macrovia. My name, Amanda R. Delaney, sat right there on the federal documentation. Third-party signatory, neutral witness, clearance liaison. I was the bridge. No one else in the company had that clearance. No one else even wanted it. The training alone was 6 months of red tape and a psych evaluation. It was like getting licensed to whisper into the Urz's ear. They gave me the power, then forgot they did. I didn't mind. I like being invisible. There's freedom in it. You get to build quietly while the loud people drown each other in buzzwords. I wasn't aiming for the spotlight. I just wanted my systems clean, my documentation tight, and my coffee uninterrupted. Oh, and by the way, if you're still listening and you're not subscribed, what are you doing? Hit that little button and give this a like. 90% of you are ghosts, I see the stats. Come on. It means the world to our little team sweating behind the scenes making these stories binge-worthy. Okay, rant over. Anyway, the only people who really noticed me were the ones who knew how fragile the entire setup was. Terry in legal, Joanna in Macrovia's compliance office, my old boss before he pivoted to alpaca farming or whatever burnout excuse he landed on. Everyone else, I was just Amanda in integration. Quiet, middle-aged, overdressed, overcaffeinated, underappreciated. Then Tate arrived, but let's not jump ahead. That day I logged into the clearance system to file my final cert. The Macrovia deal was supposed to close in 72 hours. My sign-off was the last step. Everything was aligned. Months of work, backend protocols, audit triggers, third-party sign-offs, cross-border data compliance, all ready. Except I paused. Something felt wrong. I couldn't put my finger on it yet, not exactly. But I opened my personal folder, marked contingency, and double-checked the clause I'd highlighted months ago. Just in case. Because here's the thing no one at Core Links ever understood. I didn't build systems for them. I built systems in spite of them, because I knew someday they'd trip over their own arrogance and try to throw someone like me under the bus. And I wasn't going under. Not without a fuse lit and a locked door behind me. They say when a company wants to screw you quietly, they do it on a Wednesday morning with free bagels. That's exactly how it started. The email came at 9:13 a.m., all hands mandatory 10 sharp. Exec team intro plus org updates. Don't miss it, that's HR speak for someone new's in charge and heads are gonna roll. Enter Tate Mallory, the new chief operating officer. Mid-40s, all jawline and caffeine, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my Camry. He had that startup cult energy, the kind of guy who thinks synergy is a personality trait and refers to spreadsheets as weapons of mass disruption. He smiled too much, talked too fast, called himself a fixer. I knew from minute when we were all already broken in his eyes. He spoke for 42 minutes straight, dropping words like agility, modernization, and legacy tech rot. The people around me clapped like he was Moses coming down from a Wi-Fi-enabled Mount Sinai. I just sipped my burnt coffee and opened my terminal, fixing a broken data bridge no one else even knew was failing. 3 hours later, Cheryl knocked again. This time she didn't bring paper. She brought 2 people from HR, one with a clipboard and one with dead eyes. Amanda, can we speak privately? Translation, bend over. It led me into a side room like I was being told I had rabies. No eye contact, no water. Just a manila envelope slid across the table like a ransom note. Tate didn't even bother showing up. The letter inside was half buzzwords, half bullshit, redundancy, shifting core competencies. Your role no longer aligns with strategic vision. I was still reading when the clipboard lady said, you'll need to return your badge and laptop before 3 p.m. The other one added, security's already been informed. Already. I stood up, walked to the door, and paused. Something flickered just past the corner of my eye. On the front desk, where they kept lost keys and half-dead office plants, was a printed photo of my face. In red marker, someone had scrawled, "Do not let her back on the floor. Not employee, not Amanda. Just a threat taped to laminate." It hit me in the gut like a sucker punch in a parking lot. I had trained their last 3 CTOs. I had kept our biggest deal alive with duct tape and caffeine. I had missed funerals, birthdays, anniversaries to babysit their goddamn server migrations, and now I was being treated like a liability wrapped in Spanx. I didn't cry. That would have been giving them a gift. I took a breath, walked back to my desk, packed my things into a cardboard box the way people do in bad sitcoms, except this was real. My palms were cold. My heart was hammering. Everyone around me avoided eye contact like I had contagious failure. My assistant, Kyle, mouthed, "I'm so sorry," from across the floor. I gave him a nod and a half smile. Then I did two things. First, I handed in my badge. No scene, no speech. No, you'll regret this. Just a quiet goodbye and the soft click of a lanyard dropped on polished fake wood. Second, I stepped outside, sat in my car, and unlocked my phone. I opened my secure vault app, accessed the encrypted key store, and I deleted one key. Not a password, not a file, a key store entry tied to my personal clearance certificate used in every Macrovia integration handshake. Without it, the system couldn't verify identity for third-party sign-off. Without it, the merger couldn't close. Without me, they were holding a live grenade with no pin. I didn't smile. I didn't cackle. I didn't even breathe deeply. I just drove away, hands steady, eyes forward. Because they thought they were building forward. But they'd just burned the only bridge they couldn't replace. I didn't even take my coat off when I got home. Just stood in the doorway, staring at my keys in my hand like they might dissolve if I blinked wrong. The house was quiet, too quiet. No Slack pings, no emails, no "Hey Amanda, quick question," followed by 3 hours of unpaid labor. Just the ticking of the kitchen clock and the faint hum of the fridge. The box of my office life sat on the table like a dead pet. A mug that said I void warranties, a half-used notebook full of scribbled VPN tunnels and margin notes, and a tin of mints I kept for sugar crashes during late-night system tests. All of it felt alien now, like I'd been dropped out of orbit and landed in a diorama of my own burnout. I went straight to the hallway closet. Past the winter coats, behind the broken printer I swore I'd fix, was an old fireproof file box. I dragged it out, popped the locks, and flipped through tabs labeled in my own neat handwriting. Legal, clearance, protocols, red flag. Then I pulled out the folder marked contingency. I had prepped it 2 years ago, not because I was paranoid, because I paid attention. You don't sit in on merger calls for 12 months, listen to executives lie about redundancy planning, and not start preparing for the moment they pretend you're optional. The folder was thick, too thick for someone who was supposedly legacy tech. I flipped past the org charts, the platform architecture, the SEC correspondence. Found what I was looking for, the original Macrovia protocol checklist. My name was printed on the bottom of every page as Certified Third-Party Liaison Neutral Clearance Authority. I flipped to the last 2 pages. Clause 9C, termination of named liaison without formal substitution and recertification voids compliance status and suspends the legal standing of acquisition protocol. Plain English, fire me without replacing me with someone who passes clearance and finishes the checklist, and the merger becomes a $300 million legal paperweight. No Amanda, no deal. I sat down slowly, the edges of the paper cutting into my hands like it knew what it was worth. I hadn't told anyone about this clause because no one ever asked. Hell, most of them didn't even read the merger documents. They just handed me coffee and assumed I'd keep the train moving while they stood on the tracks posing for LinkedIn. Well, not anymore. I wasn't crying. That part of me had already gone cold in the HR office when I saw my photo taped to a desk like I was a threat to national security. This wasn't grief. This was precision. They didn't just fire me, they detonated their own timeline. And the worst part, they had no idea yet. They were probably in a conference room, right now high-fiving over my exit velocity and printing a new org chart with Tate's smirking face at the top. I flipped the protocol to the final sign-off line. My signature was supposed to go there. The ink was never going to touch it now. The checklist wasn't just a formality, it was a federal requirement. It tied into compliance databases, data privacy acknowledgments, international banking approvals, every buried landmine the lawyers assured us wouldn't be a problem as long as I stayed on board. Oops. I leaned back, let the paper rest on my lap, and exhaled through my nose. This wasn't revenge. This wasn't sabotage. This was mechanics. You fire the keystone, the arch collapses, basic physics. I grabbed my old laptop from the closet, powered it up. Opened the encrypted drive I hadn't touched in 6 months. Inside, backup logs, keep air registries, liaison handshake protocols, everything they would now scramble to reconstruct from scratch with a guy named Dustin from IT who still couldn't find the correct VPN on his 3rd day. I checked the logs, verified the deletion I made from my phone earlier had propagated to the federal handshake server. It had timestamped, locked, irrevocable. They had no idea yet, but that was about to change. I sipped cold coffee from the office mug. Tomorrow, Macrovia would notice something was missing, and the screaming would begin. The call took less than 4 minutes. I didn't rehearse it, didn't pace around the kitchen or scribble bullet points like I usually did before big meetings. I just sat there at my dining table, the merger folder open beside a bowl of cereal I'd stopped eating hours ago, and dialed the number I knew by heart. Macrovia Compliance, this is Greg Taylor. His voice was chipper, too chipper for a man standing on the edge of a $300 million pit. Hi, Greg, I said, calm and flat. This is Amanda Delaney. There was a pause, papers shuffled. A mouse clicked. Oh, hey, I was just looking at your final checklist. Actually, we were expecting your last sign-off sometime this week. Are you calling to confirm that went through? I leaned back in the chair, eyes tracing the sunlight pooling across the carpet like nothing was wrong. Not exactly. Just wanted to check on something in the process flow, see if there were any updates on your end before I submit anything further. Another pause, this one longer. Wait, you haven't submitted it. No, okay, but why? His voice changed. The smile dropped off a cliff. They terminated me yesterday. Silence, like the air left the phone line. I'm sorry, what? No worries, it happens. Just thought you might want that information before proceeding. If you need formal notice, I can have my attorney draft something. He sounded like he was flipping through documents frantically, looking for any reference that this might be a prank, a miscommunication, a bad Zoom connection. They fired you? He finally asked. I'm no longer employed at Core Links. My badge was revoked. Systems access disabled. Officially removed. But you're the named liaison. Your credentials are hardwired into the process. Your ID is listed in the acquisition binder. Interagency compliance flags are tied to your profile. We can't just switch you out. That's correct. I let him sit with that. I'll send you the formal notice shortly, I added. Wouldn't want any ambiguity. And with that, I hung up. No flair, no dramatics. Just a scalpel slice straight through the spinal cord of their acquisition timeline. Then I called my lawyer. Daniel, bless him, didn't even ask why until page 3 of the termination letter. By then, he was already drafting a 2-sentence statement for Macrovia's legal team. Amanda Delaney no longer represents Core Link Systems in any formal or advisory capacity, effective immediately. The moment they received it, the brakes screeched. Macrovia halted all final signatures, froze the merger account, paused outbound fund authorizations and escrow triggers. I got a system alert 5 minutes later. Secure access handshake attempt failed key mismatch. Yeah, that's gonna keep happening, boys. Then I did something petty. I opened my phone and scrolled to my old assistant's number, Kyle. Sweet kid, still green, still clumsy, but sharp enough to know when the ground's starting to crack under his feet. I texted him, they might want to check Clause 9C. Just a thought, hope you're doing okay. No smiley face, no signature, just that. 3 minutes later, he responded, what the hell is Clause 9C? Everyone's freaking out. Did you hear something? I didn't answer. Let him stew in it. It wasn't cruelty, it was education. The kind you only get when you watch the ice split beneath you and realize the lifeboats are already gone. I stared out the window after that. The sun had dipped behind the neighbor's roof. The house across the street still had Christmas lights blinking like a nervous tick. It was March. I felt weightless, not giddy, not smug. Just like something had shifted, tectonically, and I was finally standing where I was supposed to be. They hadn't just handed me leverage, they gift-wrapped it and FedExed it to my front door. I didn't need to shout. I didn't need revenge. I was the consequence. And now they were going to learn what it costs to cut your foundation loose and pretend the house won't collapse. By Friday morning, the storm clouds were parked squarely over Core Link's headquarters, and no one had packed an umbrella. The merger signing was scheduled for 10 a.m. A full exec suite circus, polished shoes, power ties, legal briefs lined up like dominoes. Macrovia's delegation was supposed to roll in, flash some million-dollar smiles, and press pen to paper while everyone pretended it wasn't already done in spirit. But 10 o'clock came and went. No Macrovia, no delegation, no chief legal officer, no signature, just silence. At 10:12, Tate stood at the front of the executive conference room, one hand in his pocket, the other nervously clicking a Sharpie back and forth like it might turn into a magic wand and fix his mess. Well, he finally said, attempting a smirk, you know how these legacy firms are. Slow, paper-heavy, we'll fix it internally. He repeated that last part like a prayer. We'll fix it internally. Except the problem was already internal. Because 3 floors down, someone had started whispering about Clause 9C. Apparently, Kyle couldn't help himself. Bless his nervous Gen Z heart. He mentioned the clause to a junior analyst who promptly went spelunking through the company's dusty shared drive, found a copy of the original merger protocol draft Amanda had uploaded months ago, and sent a screen cap to a friend in legal. By 11:37, it was on Slack. By noon, the panic had legs. The general counsel stormed out of his office, yelling for someone to find the original signatory logs. HR was in meltdown. Compliance froze 3 pending invoices. Legal started asking, who signed off on Amanda's termination? The merger lead tried calling Macrovia directly and got stonewalled with a polite but pointed, we are currently reviewing internal documentation irregularities. Please stand by. That's corporate for, you screwed the pooch and we're not cleaning up after it. At 1:04 p.m., my phone rang. Blocked number, decline, then again, this time Core Link CFO direct. Decline. Third time voicemail, I let it roll. He sounded like someone trying not to sound like someone losing his mind. Amanda, hi, look, I know this is not ideal, but we just had a bit of a hiccup with the signing today, and I was wondering if we could connect. Briefly, just to clarify some details on the compliance chain, nothing major. You know, dotting I's, crossing T's, call me, I played it twice. Then deleted it. They thought this was a hiccup. They still didn't get it. It wasn't a hiccup. It was a lung collapse. I opened my laptop, checked the Federal Liaison Registry again. My name was still listed. No substitution filed. No recertification request submitted. No alternate key in place. Without that key, Macrovia's automated signature sequence couldn't pass the compliance gate. No handshake, no merger, no exceptions. The more they panicked, the calmer I got. It was like watching a fire you didn't set, but you did remove the batteries from the smoke alarm. The kind of quiet power that doesn't ask for applause, it just exists, undeniable and irreversible. I got a text from Kyle. They're freaking out. Legal is blaming IT is blaming legal. Tate says it's a temporary credentialing bug. This is insane. He followed it up with, did you do this? I just sent a single emoji, let them interpret it however they wanted. I made a grilled cheese sandwich, watched reruns of Judge Judy, answered a few emails for my other consulting gig, the one I'd kept on the side quietly for the last 6 months, just in case. At 4:00 p.m., mass calendar invite went out to the company. Emergency all hands 4:30 p.m. conference room alpha. The subject line said, realignment and roadmap discussion. Translation, damage control. That room was about to fill with buzzwords and flop sweat. And me, I wasn't even on the guest list anymore. But I was watching, quiet, steady, letting the ripples spread on their own. At 9:06 a.m. on Monday, the email landed. The subject line was cold and bureaucratic. Pending merger immediate compliance review required the body was even colder. To whom it may concern, due to the unplanned termination of the listed third-party liaison without replacement, Macrovia Group is formally pausing all executional aspects of the acquisition. Compliance obligations under Section 4.7 and 9(c) are currently unmet. Until resolution, transaction is considered suspended indefinitely. 4 lines, no room for argument, no spin. The kind of message that makes CFOs drop their coffee and HR reps start dry heaving into the recycling bin. And me? I was sitting at my kitchen table in sweatpants, pouring almond milk into my cereal, watching it happen in real time. The buzz on LinkedIn. The finance blogs catching wind. A post from someone at Macrovia that read, simply, always verify your bridges before you burn them. I couldn't have written it better myself. Daniel, my lawyer, sent off the final documentation 30 minutes later, fully notarized, signed in blue ink, sent priority with a digital confirmation. The letter was short but lethal. Miss Amanda Delaney has no further professional, contractual, or advisory obligations to Core Link systems, effective retroactively to the date of her termination. All compliance duties tied to the Macrovia transaction have ceased. He even added a nice legal flourish about proprietary knowledge and third-party vendor independence. I didn't even ask him to, but Daniel's a pro. He knew exactly what was about to happen. The minute that letter hit Macrovia's compliance inbox, the door slammed shut. Legally, structurally, practically, they couldn't just hire someone new and pick up where I left off. The deal wasn't a PDF they could forward, it was a hand-stitched parachute, and I'd been the one sewing the cords. Rip me out and they're falling with no drag. Later that afternoon, I opened a new tab and registered Quiet Seal LLC. It took 11 minutes. EIN, registered agent, bank account pending. Just like that, Amanda Delaney was no longer an employee. I was an entity, a vendor. A firewall with a mailing address and a licensing clause. My phone stayed silent most of the day. No more calls from the CFO, no desperate texts from Kyle, but I knew they were talking. I could feel the boardroom tremors from 3 ZIP codes away, because now the whispers were starting. Wait, did Amanda have side equity in the Macrovia pipeline? Did she build the original data bridge? Was she acting as a vendor this whole time? No, I wasn't, but they wanted to believe I was, because otherwise they'd have to face the fact that I was just a salaried ghost they ignored, until I became the keystone holding up their entire castle. Funny how people rewrite history when the present starts burning. I got a text from an unknown number that evening. Just 2 words, well played. No name, no signature. Probably someone from legal, or maybe Macrovia's COO, or maybe one of the other ghosts who watched everything from the wings and never said a word. I didn't reply, I was done playing. This wasn't a game anymore, it was architecture. Clean lines, elegant collapse, an old building raised not with dynamite but with precision. A single screw removed, a single key store revoked, a signature never written. The betrayal didn't sting anymore, that was over. Now I just felt focused. Clean, unburdened. Somewhere downtown, Tate was probably sweating through his shirt, facing a glass conference room while someone pointed at Clause 9(c) projected on the wall like it was the Zodiac Killer's note. And me? I was adding a new tagline to my LLC website draft. Quiet Seal LLC compliance without compromise, had a nice ring to it, and it was about time someone remembered who built the damn bridge. It started with a whisper in the elevator, one of those dry-mouthed, wide-eyed conversations executives think no one hears. By mid-morning, it had metastasized into a board-wide panic. Someone leaked a red-line document from Macrovia's legal team, termination of Amanda Delaney Void's acquisition standing. The phrase bounced through every hallway like a live grenade. Suddenly, directors were sitting bolt upright in meetings. Phones rang without pause. Lawyers shouted over each other like caged dogs, while the PR team frantically prepared contingency statements in case the news hit the press. And hit it did. A financial blog posted a blind item. Unnamed Ohio-based tech firm loses key compliance asset mid-merger. Deal in limbo. $300M on the line. They didn't name core links, but they didn't have to. Inside the building, the air turned to ice. The CFO called me again. This time, he didn't bother with pleasantries. His voice was high-pitched, cracking, like a balloon about to pop. Amanda, I swear to God, this is your fault. You're holding us hostage. Do you even understand the position you've put us in? This could kill the company. You can't just walk away. I didn't answer. Just stared at the screen as it buzzed and rattled on the table. Then it stopped. Then again, voicemail, I let it roll. His tone had changed, now it was pleading. Amanda, we're willing to be flexible. Just please call me back. We can work something out. Macrovia won't accept anyone else. I keep saying material personnel discrepancy, and legal's saying you were never replaced. It's a technicality, right? We can fix it. Please just talk to me. Click. I watched the waveform load into my inbox and deleted it without listening again. It wasn't a technicality. It was the whole damn structure. They hadn't just removed a cog. They'd taken a match to the foundation and acted surprised when the roof caved in. Macrovia wasn't budging. No workarounds. No acting liaisons. No emergency substitutions. Their final response was 3 lines long. We do not accept interim authorization under Clause 9C. Acquisition terms voided. Contract suspended. Tate tried to spin it in a meeting, said we'd rebuild the trust, whatever that meant. Someone in legal reportedly laughed out loud. The finance lead looked like he was about to cry. And then they made a mistake. They thought they could still salvage this the old-fashioned way. With charm, with pressure, with in-person theatrics. So they sent someone to my house. Late afternoon. Gray Lexus parked awkwardly across the driveway. A man in a blazer stepped out, holding a manila envelope and the kind of hope that smells like desperation in the wind. He rang the bell, waited, rang again. I was inside, lights off, sitting at the kitchen table with tea and the faint hum of jazz in the background, flipping through licensing terms for a new client inquiry that had hit Quiet Seal's inbox earlier that day. He knocked. I didn't move. I watched him on the doorbell cam, pacing, checking his phone, muttering. Finally, he left the envelope wedged in the screen door and got back in the car. I let it sit there until the wind blew it off the porch. I didn't need to open it. I already knew what it said. Apologies, offers, vague hints at reinstatement and restoring alignment. They still thought this was about a job. They didn't understand I'd already built a new world from the pieces they threw away. This wasn't a grudge. It wasn't revenge. It was just done. Done letting people talk over me in meetings while I kept their infrastructure from collapsing. Done translating their mistakes into code fixes. Done playing Sherpa to a summit I was never invited to celebrate. So when they knocked, I didn't flinch. I just sipped my tea, watched the sky darken, and let the storm swirl behind a door that would never open again. By Tuesday morning, the tone inside Core Links had gone from damage control to full-blown cardiac arrest. The board called an emergency session, no PowerPoints, no catered breakfast, just red faces and clashing egos. The kind of meeting where people talk over each other so loudly, you forget there's a fire, because the smoke alarms were all ripped out during a modernization sprint. Tate sat at the head of the table looking like a drowned possum in a tailored suit. His swagger had vanished. His voice, once a confident drone of startup nonsense, cracked like he'd swallowed a pine cone. He started with, I think we may have, underestimated the depth of Amanda's legacy role, and didn't get more than 6 syllables in before the lead investor, a wiry man named Carl with hawk eyes and a voice like gravel and litigation, slammed a folder shut and leaned forward. Who, Carl asked quietly, authorized termination without transition planning? Dead silence. The GC looked down at his shoes. The CFO went pale. One of the board members coughed into her sleeve like it might protect her from the fallout. Tate tried again. It was a group consensus based on performance metrics, and Carl raised one hand. No more startup lingo. No more buzzwords. A $300 million deal is dead. Macrovia has made it clear they won't re-engage without Amanda's credentials. You didn't fire a developer. You severed a compliance artery. So I ask again, who? Signed. Off. The footage did the rest of the talking. Someone in PR had leaked a security still from Amanda's last day. Her photo taped to the front desk in red marker, the words "Do not let her back" on the floor scrawled beneath it like she was radioactive. It landed on LinkedIn with the caption, "How you treat your veterans tells the rest of us everything we need to know." It exploded. Former employees chimed in. Clients quietly screenshotted it. Even Macrovia's CCO liked the post, which sent the legal team into a visible tailspin. Someone printed it and brought it into the boardroom. No one wanted to look at it, but no one dared throw it away either. That afternoon, Tate sent a formal offer through HR, double salary, title bump, enhanced authority. The email hit Amanda's lawyer's inbox like a Hail Mary wrapped in tinsel. Daniel forwarded it to me with one question: want to ghost them or write back? I told him to write back. His reply was beautiful. Miss Delaney appreciates your revised offer. However, she no longer holds employee status at Core Link Systems. Should your organization wish to re-engage her expertise, Quiet Seal LLC is available for limited licensing of relevant services. Market rates apply. Retainer required. Engagement subject to availability. Short, surgical, no drama, just facts. No more company badge, no more office politics. No more Tate. That same evening, Core Links's internal chat channels exploded again. The offer had leaked. Someone in HR, probably fed up, pasted the response into a staff thread titled Emergency Staffing Update. It circulated faster than any memo Tate ever wrote. And suddenly, the narrative flipped. The same people who'd barely looked Amanda in the eye now whispered her name like a myth. Not just that lady from compliance, but the woman who single-handedly brought the merger to its knees without so much as a raised voice. Even Kyle messaged me again. You really said double it and walked away, huh? I didn't reply because he wasn't wrong. I hadn't burned the bridge. I just turned it into a toll road. And now, they could either pay the fare or stand there watching the wreckage from the shore. It ended not with a press release, but with a whimper. Macrovia officially pulled out on a Thursday morning. The statement hit the wire at 7:13 a.m. due to unresolvable compliance gaps and personnel discrepancies. Macrovia Group has terminated its acquisition proceedings with Core Link Systems. We wish all parties well. 4 sentences. Cold, surgical. A bullet in a silk envelope. By 9 a.m., Core Links' stock was in freefall, $300 million in projected value gone like a magician's rabbit, but without the applause. By noon, someone in the finance team leaked the investor call transcript. It was brutal. The lead investor screamed, the GC deflected, and Tate apparently left mid-call with the mic still hot. I watched the CFO resign via webcast, pale, hollowed out, delivering the usual spiel about new opportunities and family time, like anyone believed he was doing anything but fleeing the smoking crater. I never re-entered the building. Not even when they sent another courier with a new offer. Not even when the interim CTO asked for a quiet conversation over coffee. But I did answer the door for the courier that came on Friday morning. He handed me a square velvet box, no sender label, just a gold seal I recognized from Macrovia's executive suite. Inside, nestled in silk, was a note in careful, steady handwriting. Next time, they'll know who built the bridge. RM, CEO, Macrovia Group, no pitch. No ask, just recognition. The kind that doesn't come with confetti but lands like a gavel. I set it on my bookshelf, right between the merger binders and the Quiet Seal operating agreement. Then I walked back to my new desk. My home office didn't smell like burnt coffee and recycled ambition. It smelled like fresh pine and control. 3 screens lit up in front of me, none connected to Slack, none tied to anyone who could call me legacy. Quiet Seal LLC had just signed a 3rd client. One of them was Core Links. They didn't want to, but they needed to. They were licensing one of the old integrations I'd architected. The very same infrastructure they once deemed obsolete. Now, critical, and I controlled the access keys. I charged them 4x the original rate. No complaints, because this time they knew. As the sun spilled through the blinds, I wrapped my fingers around a warm cup of coffee and watched the light catch on the edge of that velvet box. A quiet morning. No meetings. No fire drills. Just clarity. My phone buzzed. New email. Subject, respectfully requesting your terms. I smiled, took a slow sip, let it sit on my tongue a moment before swallowing. Let the world run. I wasn't chasing anymore. I was the terms. Big thanks for watching, you sneaky seniors. Subscribe to keep the coffee pot brewing revenge. Your ex-colleagues won't know what hit 'em.